It is S&L. It's a very loaded day. Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. We just got back from Nick Caserio's press conference. He said some things. There was the typical word salad, but there were some things that stuck out from Nick Caserio. Reminder tonight, 8 o'clock, we will have DraftMania. DraftaMania. John Harris joins us for a super stream at 8. There seems to be a lot of excitement around that. Rightfully so, because John Harris in that format is elite. So be on the lookout for that. Locker room still at the same time, and we're 8 days away from the draft. Cody, what were your biggest takeaways from what Nick Caserio had to say, and what Nick Caserio said today when he addressed the media types?
I noticed one thing about Nick Caserio, and he doesn't do it to the same level. But, man, he sure tries to make it seem like the draft is not as important as it is. And Bill O'Brien used to do this from time to time, but he did it once the players were already in the building, and he just kind of downplayed the rookies. But Nick Caserio, where he kind of goes, yeah, well, the draft's not the only way to add players. It's like, okay, all right. He's like, well, we get these guys in the building. They're behind. They are behind everybody else that's in the building. It's like, okay, would it kill you to just get excited about the draft? Okay. And I understand there's probably a plan for it because he doesn't want to sit there and he doesn't want to just pump up that these draft picks are really important to the Houston Texans going forward. So I certainly understand that from that aspect. But that was my first thing. I was just kind of like, hey, would it kill you to get excited about the draft a little bit? Would it just really stick a dagger into your analytical heart to just be excited about getting college football players in the building? I did notice that he talked about, these guys got to get stronger. So I wonder if maybe guys who put up a little bit more juice in the weight room are a little bit tiny bit more attractive. But he had a bunch of different things that he addressed. I think there was a couple of different questions about the offensive line, and the way he answered them kind of told you how he actually feels, regardless of what he actually said. I thought there were some little clues. You talk about the word salad with Nick Caserio. The lettuce is not my favorite part of the salad, but I do like when you get a little tasty morsel of chicken or when you get a crouton, and you can pick some of those out from Nick Caserio, and you can find some of those things in what he says about this Texans team. So we'll go through those once Landry gets rolled back in here. HDAV Traveler with the super chat. Let the good times roll, he says. It feels like the good times are about to start rolling, and the draft just about a week away from getting underway. Of course, day 2 is going to be huge. Nick Caserio mentioned a couple of times. Thank you, HDAV Traveler, for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it. Caserio mentioned a couple of different times, hey, we got 4 picks in the top 89, 4 picks in the top 89. So he mentioned a few of that a few times. They're pretty proud of that. He did obviously note, hey, we don't have a 4th. We don't have a 6th. I mean, he loves to move around, so I got to imagine those are goals of his to go and find those when he does make some trades.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that he gets asked, and it's going to be the same answer every year. I think a lot of these questions, it's like, why don't we just record them and ask them next year, because it's going to be the same type of thing. But I do think he had some stuff to say that probably relevant this year, for sure. I think there was some relevance in stuff that he would say this year. And I want to start with the Nick Caserio annual acknowledgement that it is silly season. There is a lot of noise, and it's not draft time. It's not the draft press conference if Nick doesn't get this out of the way and get this joke in.
Fluid, nothing's set. There's no board, quote unquote, that's set. There's no final list of players, or we're, taking X number of players, or these are the 3 players we're focused on. Let's say, honestly, this time of year is a bunch of noise out there. That's a bunch of garbage. So, we're just going to go through our process and just kind of prepare and get ready to go for next week and take advantage of our opportunities to pick whenever those might be. Right now, we're scheduled to pick at 25. Pick at 25, great. If we don't, we don't.
Okay. Bunch of noise. The one that he addressed that was when he's like, oh, it's not just these 3 players. That kind of, to me, comes on the heels of literally Daniel Jeremiah with Ryan Russillo and Todd McShay saying it's Banks or Booker for the Houston Texans. So I wonder if that crossed Nick Caserio's desk. And of course, he hates draft rumor season. It's just, it bothers him to no end. He's called it silly season before, but you're right. It's not the pre-draft press conference if Nick Caserio doesn't, bitch about rumors and stuff like that about the draft season.
Yeah, and I mean, he is right. It does get it. There's also kind of like it's almost like some people don't think there should be a week between the Super Bowl because it just gives you too much time. Like we're talking about months when it comes to the draft. So it just kind of piles up, it bubbles, and there's a lot of noise that we acknowledge that he obviously kind of scoffs at, and rightfully so.
I do, and he did say he joked about mock drafts a little bit later on, and he's like, "Oh, there's 4,000 mock drafts, and I don't know which one's right." He's like, "But some of the guys do talk to teams, so they have a pretty good idea of that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So of all the silly season stuff, he like kind of gave like a tiny bit of credibility to the mock draft conversation, which the mock draft conversation is probably the one that has the least impact of the entire silly season. Like I do want to know if Todd McShay's heard that this guy's got character concerns. I do want to know if Dane Brugler uncovered that this guy's got a health thing that we never talk about. So I thought that was funny that he was like, yeah, some of these guys mock drafts, it's pretty interesting because we know they talk to teams. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good resource for him, whether he wants to admit it or not. I think one thing that we've talked about, and when I talk to Cacerio, I try to, or D'Amico or anybody, I try to bring up stuff that perhaps we talk about on the streams or on the podcast or whatever. So one of the things that I think has been front and center, and we've seen them take action on it, has been the evaluation of the offensive line and the fact that they've invested a lot and they haven't gotten much from it on the field. We've seen what they've done with coaches. We've seen what they've done with players. But what about the evaluation as a whole? Is that something that needs to kind of change? I asked Nick Caserio this. He gave – I'll let you decide.
To the offensive line and the process, you guys have had the most invested, or among the top of the league, most invested in the offensive line, and it really kind of hasn't translated on the field. Given that, outside of getting rid of players and coaches, does that process maybe require a little bit more tweaking than other processes, given what the results have been based on the investment?
Yeah, we always look at everything. So, just try to, in the end, try to make the decisions that we feel, are in the best interest of the team. It's always case by case. Each year is going to be a little bit different. So, contracts are contracts. Just part of the process. So, we'll look at everything, and if there's something that we feel we can improve, we'll look at it. And if not, then, we'll kind of keep moving forward. So, I don't think there's anything, wholesale that we feel like we got to do, that much differently.
You don't get much there, but I think trying not to give him an out, like acknowledging that you've invested a lot. I don't know what contracts really means, but I think it goes without saying they've sucked at it for whatever the reason. Now, maybe the reason was coaching, maybe the reason was misevaluation, maybe the reason was schematic, but it goes without saying that they've really kind of sucked at it. And the question was actually asked again later on by Adam Wexler, and I'm not going to lie to you. As Wexy asked this, I was like, man, is he going to get the in-depth answer now on this? I'll let you decide. Before we get
to Wexler, though, I thought for a second Cacerio was going to give you something. And then it was if there was a Nick Caserio like action figure and you pulled a string on the back and it said a certain amount of phrases, we're going to do what's in the best interest of the team would be one of the 5 phrases that the Cacerio action figger says. So I was
Bill O'Brien action figure and the Bill Belichick action figure. So
yeah. So I thought for a second, I was like, I thought he was going to give you something, and then he didn't. And then I thought the same way. Let's see what Wexler put together and if he got a little bit different or a little bit more.
Nick, as you normally do when you open up these press conferences, you mentioned some of the guys that are in your group, Lip, Zeke, and Brad. You guys have been together the last couple of years doing this. Last 3 drafts, you drafted 6 offensive linemen, 3 in the first 2 rounds. Do you think internally there needs to be a reevaluation of how you evaluate that specific position?
I mean, we look at everything on a constant basis. So, again, it's case by case. I mean, a lot of faith and confidence. I mean, I'd say the entire building, starting with D'Amico and the coaching staff, have a lot of confidence in that group. So, again, look at everything. We'll try to make decisions that, we think make sense for your organization. They're not all going to work. I mean, I've said this before. I mean, I don't know how many times I've said it, but it's a lot. You can ask Omar. I mean, the draft's 50-50. I mean, that's what it is. So some are going to work, some aren't going to work. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So we're no different than any other team. So if there's something that we can improve and tweak and adjust, we'll look at it. So it's never one particular thing and never one factor, but we're always open-minded and always trying to find ways to make things better.
I wish them picking offensive lineman was 50-50. They'd be in a better spot.
Well, okay. Whatever you say, Nick. I guess he's right about that. I don't know. I do wonder about the evaluation. Like I think it probably has been changed if you want to read between the lines, but he's probably not going to overly admit that.
The annoying part about this is I do feel like some general managers around the league, if they had made a change, it did work, they would crow that the change occurred and worked. They would talk about it. Cacerio will never say, I did a lot, and then I took a step back on the O-lineman, and we drafted better O-linemen. Like, that would never happen. That would never be, like, a public comment from him. It's all about, like, whoa, as a group, we did this, blah, 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 blah. So he did mention that because they've had a lot of the same guys in the drafting part of the organization, the player evaluation, the scouting, it allowed him to take a little bit of a step back from some of the work that he was doing when he first got here. So maybe he's over-involved early. You get the Kenyon Green selection. It doesn't work out. And maybe in the past couple years and in this year, maybe last year, he's taken a little bit of a step back on O-line. Hopefully they can get a little bit better.
I mean, they have to. I mean, they absolutely have to. So really didn't give us much there when it came to that.
The other thing about the way they've approached adding offensive linemen, have they ever added they've never added an offensive lineman under Nick Caserio where you're like, well, they just had bad luck with this one. Like, there were questions about Kenyon Green. There were questions about Juice Scruggs, like significant questions. Most draft people thought he shouldn't have been a first 2-day selection. And then you look at the free agents that they've added here this offseason, there's questions about those two guys, Ed Ingram, the trade that they made for him. It's not like they've drafted guys who were supposed to be really good, and it's like, well, bad luck, that guy wasn't any good. Like, they've made decisions with guys with significant questions around them. Like, if they go out there in this upcoming draft and they draft Kelvin Banks from Texas and it doesn't work out, that's a Kelvin Banks problem. That's not necessarily a Houston Texans problem. Like, it felt like.
What do you mean by that?
I just laid it all out. Like, Kelvin Banks has a lot. Like, do you not understand that? What doesn't make sense to you? Let me explain it for you.
I mean, what do you mean it's not a Texans problem? What does that mean?
What I'm saying is I don't believe that their process led to Kelvin Banks being picked and him not being good. I believe that Kelvin Banks ended up being a bad football player when he had less question marks than some of the other decisions that they've made with their offensive linemen. They add constantly offensive linemen that have significant question marks about them.
Kelvin Banks has question marks if he falls to 25?
Not to the level that Kenyon Green did when he got drafted, or overdrafting Juice Scruggs by 2 rounds, or signing Laken Tomlinson, who hasn't been good for 3 seasons, or trading for Ed Ingram, who hasn't been good in his NFL career, or getting Cam Robinson, who can only pass block. Like, he doesn't have the same type of questions that those guys have.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't really separate it. Like, if whether it's Banks, whether it's Booker, whatever. Like, I don't separate it. I look at it as just like a problem with them, no matter what. Like, Banks doesn't, like, I don't just sit there and say, oh well, I mean, I guess your point is that it won't be as criticized, so that means it wouldn't be their problem. So because, like, me or you or the media isn't criticizing it as much, then they're good to go. Like, that's really what I'm confused on.
I'm telling you, they've added players. I don't know how many times I have to say it. They've added players with more question marks. Banks has less question marks. Like take a more steady, solid prospect, add a more steady, solid player than what they previously have added.
Oh, you've explained it, but if he falls to, I feel like there's a lot of questions about Banks though.
Okay, well then we feel differently about the player.
But if he falls to 25, then I just feel that way. I don't know. I guess I wouldn't. I just want the results when it comes to evaluating offensive linemen. I guess that's really the bottom line. Like if Banks ends up being bad, I'm not gonna say, well, this one's different than Juice Scruggs or Kenyon Green or the Shaq Mason extension. I think that their process is under the fire based on the results. Like we've seen them draft a guy in the first round. We've seen them trade up for a guy in the second round. We've seen them extend guys early. We've seen them get rid of guys that they liked a lot. Like, and I think the results is what it is. Cause I think there's different examples of the process that's led them to arrive to the situation where they have one of the most poorly functioning offensive lines in the league.
Yeah, well, I would tell you that Banks would be a departure from their typical process because he's a more solid player than the guys that they've previously had.
See, I wonder if he gets there in the first place. I know he's visiting with Arizona, but we'll see. It's definitely a problem though, and I think that's the one thing we can agree with it on. You asked Cacerio about guys changing positions in that evaluation. Did you have any prospects in mind when you asked this question, like this year, like as far as like potential Texans?
Kelvin Banks, Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson, Jonah Savanaia, Tate Ratledge, Anthony Belton from North Carolina. Basically any lineman that they've been connected to might have to change positions. Banks maybe not going to play tackle right away. Gray Zabel not going to play tackle. He's going to play interior offensive line, might play center. It's not something he didn't do in college. Tate Ratledge played his entire career at right guard. Booker played his entire career at left guard. They might put him on opposite sides or switch them, move them around. So those guys, and it kind of, to an extent, to me, extends out to wide receivers too. Like, okay, I didn't see the guy play in the slot, but do we think he has the skills to play in the slot, do things from the slot? So
this is what Cacerio had to say when Cody asked him this question.
It's tricky because when you see a player actually do something, you have a better barometer understanding. If you're projecting it, there's a little bit of trial and error, and you're not really sure how the player is going to respond, whether it's physically or mentally, be able to handle that type of role. So honestly, there's a little bit of risk involved. I mean, there's risk in any player. But I think when you see a player, whether it's play multiple positions, then it's a lot easier to say, you know what, we think he might be able to handle a multi-position role, whether it's offensively or defensively. It's, you know, on the offensive line, guys, okay, they've just played tackle. Can they move inside? They just played guard. Can they put their hand on the ball and play center? And if they haven't done it, you got to sort of make an extrapolation based on the information that you have.
To me, it didn't feel like he really wanted to draft a guy that was changing positions.
Did use the Edelman example, which I think that's used every year. That's almost as much as the silly season thing. Like Julian Edelman comes up. That's a pick they should quite frankly be proud of. And they mention quite often. But yeah, the changing positions, it's probably a little bit difficult. And along the offensive line, God, it's really a sensitive subject because the versatility stuff has just kind of been, okay, cool. This guy's versatile. That's great.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's players to me that they should just draft and stick them at their college position. I think Tyler Booker's probably the number one guy that fits that. He played left guard at Bama. Bring him in, play him at left guard. And Tate Ratledge would be the other guy. He played right guard at Georgia. Draft him, bring him in, stick him at right guard, and just go with that. To stop this screwing around stuff. And to be honest, that's what they did with Kamari last year. Now, I don't know if they had a lot of options, but there was a lot of conversation like, well, Kamari probably needs to go inside. Should he go inside? They gave him the chance outside, and he never looked back, and he did it just fine. So the position he did play in college, so they didn't screw around with him. So that was a breath of fresh air last year that they gave him that opportunity. He ran with it. He was successful. They didn't have to move him around and ask him to do some different things than what he did in college. They just let him go out there and be the college player that he was, that they drafted.
I look at it different from like a defensive player or a skill guy as opposed to an offensive lineman just doing something completely different, because obviously like offensive players, defensive players, they line up in different spots on different plays. Like for the offensive line guy though, and I think we brought this up the other day, like you don't have a guy play guard on first down and then move out to tackle, or line up at left guard and then right guard and move out there. Although I think they should really try to figure this out. He's kind of sick. If they could figure that out and make that happen. I'm kind of just kidding. But I think like from a receiver standpoint, it is interesting. And we've brought this up a number of times. And I was really just trying to hammer home the point I've made about Cacerio and Nick Caserio and the two Nicks. Nick. And the fact that they come from places where we've seen multiple slots perform at the same time. In New England, with initially it was going to be Edelman and Welker. Then they went to the two tight ends. And then when Caserio arrived, it was Edelman and Amendola. And then when Caserio went to the Rams, it was Puka and Kupp whenever they were on the field at the same time. We talk a lot about receivers. We know that Christian Kirk recently has done a lot of work in the slot. I thought this was a really insightful answer, kind of got the draft imagination flowing. I asked him about that experience in multiple slot receivers. And this is what Cacerio had to say. And my mind went a number of directions with this one. I thought this was good, relevant, topical stuff from Nick Caserio. Here's what he had to say.
With similar skill sets that play the same position, having success at the same time, Amendola and Edelman, and then Puka and Kupp. You brought in Kirk, who works a lot in the slot. Is it safe to say that someone who primarily worked in the slot in college, like you're not going to shy away from him just because he did majority of his work in the slot like Christian?
Yeah, good question, Landry. I would say, honestly, when you look at kind of formationing and some of the things that you're able to do from an alignment standpoint, I mean, guys essentially line up all over the place. So even if they're quote-unquote inside the formation players, I mean, everybody's an inside the formation player. When you reduce a split, when you have tight receivers tight their formation, all right, line up players outside the formation. I would say going back to Kirk, at A&M, like he played inside the formation. But I would say when you look at his career, I mean, he's pretty much played all over the formation. I mean, let's go back to Arizona. I mean, this guy played all over the place. So you need players that maybe have some degree of flexibility. So if a guy can play inside the formation, outside the formation, all right, not everybody can do that, but some can. You can do some things formationally to kind of help the players. There's some players that are better served on the perimeter. Try to keep him on a perimeter. If he's an inside-only player, okay, well, then he's an inside-only player. Like Amendola, I would say, was an inside-only player. I'd say Edelman wasn't an inside-only player. Like Edelman was able to be a multi-purpose player. Plenty of snaps to him on perimeters.
So he clearly does not look at Christian Kirk as just a slot guy. I don't think even if he was, I don't think you could dismiss them drafting slot guys, but I thought that was interesting. He also went on to mention Gronk, and that kind of had me thinking about the two tight ends that we've seen him visit with in Arroyo and Helm. And I know Helm was majority in the slot, but there were times where they would line him outside at Texas. And we know Arroyo has the ability to do that as well. So I don't think there's any receiver that you can dismiss. And I think you can kind of bring the tight end possibilities into it too with that. So I think that's kind of interesting when it comes to guys like Ibuka, who we're talking about. Ibuka, Knoll, out of Iowa State. Golden, I don't even think Golden needs to be discussed because I don't think he gets there. But I do think that with the wide receivers, Besh, like he's another one who's a slot guy. I think there's a lot of possibilities, and I think you can kind of look at the visits that they've had and the history that those two have and kind of lump that in together.
The players that I thought about right away were Jaden Higgins, who can play outside, play inside. Jalen Knoll, his teammate from Iowa State, play inside, play outside. Jack Besh, play inside, play outside, probably best suited for the inside. But again, we just went through the whole conversation of just because he's maybe best suited for that doesn't mean that you can't still have him on the team and then move the other guy around. And, Kirk's one from the outside plenty. Kirk played outside for Jacksonville last year when he was healthy. So it's not like he's been some sort of, slot only type of player, but it also gave to me a little credence to if a guy can do both, and especially if he showcased both at the college level, that guy maybe has a little bit on one of these other guys who's maybe just an outside guy or certainly just an inside guy. And just inside guys are I feel like are much lower than just outside guys too.
Yeah. What do you think they do if Banks and Ibuka are there?
They take Banks.
You think they go Banks instead of Ibuka?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Who's a better football player? Who do you think is better at football?
I think Banks is.
Yeah,
I also think Banks is a tackle.
Okay. We'll play him at tackle.
That's not stopping. I think he's a tackle.
You think he would be bad at guard?
I don't think he would be bad. I can't say that he would be good. I know that the guys that project it say that he could be a good guard. He's mean as fuck when it comes to run blocking. So, it's not like kind of a finesse guy like Titus Howard moving over to guard where they're suspect. He's a mean motherfucker. But the I look at him as a tackle, which kind of makes your case a little bit stronger. If you think he can play guard and then play tackle, I think it's interesting. I don't think he falls there, but I'm intrigued to see if he does. And Cacerio did actually mention Texas today, kind of unsolicited. He said, yeah, and you go to Texas, they got 100 guys getting drafted this year. So do with that what you will, but he was, it does seem like there was a little bit of satisfaction with the amount of prospects that are coming out of Austin.
Yeah, he loves the he called it the bunching of players. There's a bunch of Texas players, and you get to see all of them perform at the pro day, and sure talk to some of them and things like that. So there's a lot of you could draft a Texas guy in almost every round in this upcoming draft.
Uncle asked, and Kunkel was sitting to our right. He asked about ceilings and floors or something. Do you draft a guy with a high ceiling and a high floor? I guess what's the balance between drafting a guy that might have this much potential versus significant potential? What do you think the floor ceiling is between Ibuka and Kelvin Banks? Who do you think is the safer pick, and who do you think has the higher upside? Because the sense that I get is some people just feel like Ibuka doesn't have massive upside. That's just kind of what it feels like when people are talking about Ibuka. And with Banks, some people just have decreased his positional value by saying that he's a guard instead of a tackle.
I would tell you that the top end that I see from Ibuka is a really good a really good number 2 wide receiver. So is that one of the 25, 30 best guys at the position? That's kind of what I would tell you a really good 2 on a good team is probably one of the 30 or so best guys at the position. Now, obviously, most teams play 2-3 wide receivers, so you look at it that way. The top end for Banks is one of the 8 best guys at his position, so top quarter of the league at his position. That's what I feel like Banks can do. Now, the floor for those guys, for Ibuka is a reliable third. He's a reliable number 3 wide receiver.
Yeah,
He does dirty work for you. He gets you a couple catches every now and then, and it's a 400, 500, 600-yard season, a few touchdowns. The floor for Banks, I'd say the floor for Banks is solid guard. That's what I feel like the floor for him is.
One thing that I saw, and I watched just a brief breakdown. I thought it was a good breakdown from Voch Lombardi. He covers the Cowboys, but he does a lot of draft stuff with Brian Broaddus, and you know how I feel about him, Super Bowl winning scout. But he did a little Ibuka breakdown. And the one thing that Ibuka is good at is kind of disguising his routes. Like it's like a nerdy ass, like fake the post, go inside type of thing. But the other thing that Ohio State receivers seem to do well, which I think that Tank did really well in the first year with CJ Stroud, I think Nico does a good job of it too. But it's making yourself available whenever plays break apart. Now, hopefully the importance of that is decreased with the offensive line, whether it's schematic or just the way they perform. But that is the one thing and the one trait that I feel like Ohio State receivers and specifically Ibuka have is they never really quit on the play. They make themselves available for the quarterback in like scramble drill. And I don't know if that's something you can teach. I don't know if it's just something where you develop chemistry with the quarterback, but I think it might be like a skill that Ibuka possesses that probably doesn't get factored in as much as perhaps it should with the way that CJ plays ball.
You sent me this video and I watched it. It feels like Ibuka squeezes every last bit out of what he's supposed to do at wide receiver. And as I was watching it, all I could think about was how last year it felt like, yes, some of the issues with the offense were clear and we could see it. And, it prevented them from being successful, like the way the offense was designed. But in that video that you sent, it was like, hey, look, this is a fine play, but because Ibuka does this, it's a great play for the quarterback. Like it was thrown into a window. And then Ibuka made the window bigger by like doing something that most wide receivers don't do. So he's a heady, smart wide receiver. There was another one on the sideline where he kept coming back to the football to make it easier for the quarterback to make the throw. And so look, don't get me wrong. There's a lot to like about him, Ibuka. There is. And
yeah, it's just like you're not going to watch his highlights and say, holy shit, like a lot of these guys that you will. I actually put the link if y'all want to check it out after the podcast on there.
I got news for you. For 9 weeks of the season, you're not going to do that with Matthew Golden either. Like you're going to do that with Golden for about 4 games. I don't know why everybody's, having trouble standing up watching that guy when you have to watch 4 games to get big plays out of him.
And as someone who watches every Texas game, like Bond was wide receiver 1 early on until he got hurt, and then Golden kind of emerged. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Like there's not really spectacular stuff. Did you? I don't think you saw this, but we played a little Name That Team with Kyle Williams from Washington State. Man, it's really tough. I want you to watch his highlights and try to play Name That Team. You might bet 10%. I do wonder, with the Kyle Williams, go look at his game log from last year. Like the strong chunk of his production was from very, very moderate squads. So when we talk about Kyle Williams and people are asking about small schools and evaluation, I do wonder if Kyle Williams is one of those guys where you have to have that mindset. Although he did have the good year in the Pac-12 the year before, which was all right. But last year, I know the bowl game against Syracuse is like the most recent example. Bowl games are kind of a crapshoot. But a lot of his production came against schools that would be considered small.
Well, I mean, Cacerio talked about that today. I mean, he talked about it, and I'll just play it and I'll tell you what I think about it. Here's what he had to say about success mattering against who you play against.
The player, here's what we think he does well. You might have to not downgrade it based on the level of competition, but there's a little bit of difference, what the guy does against LSU versus what he does against, Western Tennessee State or somebody like that, if that's who they're playing every week. So you're not going to eliminate a player, but, give him an opportunity. But, not every player can make that jump. So, I mean, it's case by case like a lot of this is, but there's a projection element that's involved. No question about it.
Now, that was on the back end of a conversation about smaller school guys and things like that. Consider Washington State whatever you'd like. They're not Power 5. They're not Group of 5. They used to be. He's got a little success there. But he said he gave a fake school as an example. He might as well have said Portland State, where Williams had 4 for 144 and 2 touchdowns last year.
Keep going.
He might as well have said San Jose State, where Williams had 8 for 138 and a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. Keep going.
He might as well have said Utah State, where Williams had 5 for 55 and 3 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. Keep going. You can keep going. Are we good there?
He might as well have said New Mexico, where Williams had 9 for 181 and 3 touchdowns.
Yep. Yeah, so I do wonder where that is, and that's just a Williams mention.
You hate Kyle Williams, so you had to bring it up. That's fine. But it adds on to something that D'Amico Ryans talked about. Now, he was specifically talking about offensive linemen, and it was, the jump from college players to the NFL players. It's enormous for these guys. They don't always see it. Or they don't always handle it well because of the physicality and how different it is. Well, if you play against some top level college talent, it's a smaller jump. If you're facing all those teams that Gray Zabel played, it's a much bigger jump for him. It goes the same for Kyle Williams. Kyle Williams, okay, Boise State and New Mexico and Portland State and all that, that's not as good as when Jack Besh goes out there and does it against Texas Tech, Colorado, Kansas State, all those teams that have a little bit more juice to them. So, Cacerio's draft history shows it. He likes guys that go to big schools and have success against other big schools. That is what they prefer. And then it's the levels beyond that of, okay, what can we get out of the guy if he doesn't fit in that criteria?
Shout out to everyone in the chat. I think we're almost 400 deep. Get you ready, get your popcorn ready, eat your dinner. 8:00 today. The super stream with John Harris. Some thought we were just going to do that and not do the normal show. No, don't work that way. Also doing the locker room stream at 10:30. And we'll dive deeper into what Nick Caserio has said. So yeah, we will be sure to keep this going, and the draft super stream is going to be a hell of a treat. Speaking of treats, super chat time.
Swarm.
Daniel A says we need to pray that Banks is at 25 and then Ibuka falls to second round for a trade up. Yeah, I mean that would probably be a dream scenario for many people, and it would address what I think is widely regarded as your two biggest needs. Now, Cacerio says we don't draft for need, which, okay. I mean, I understand that. But yeah.
He always puts that caveat on there of we don't draft for need, but he also talks about stacking the players on the board based on what they can do for the team. So, if a guy can start at guard, he's more valuable than a backup defensive back. You know what I mean? What can they do for the teams? You could say that and still end up drafting for need, and you can just lie through your teeth and say, oh, he was the best player available. It's well, was he? Because Nick Minowari is better than every guy they might draft at 25, but he wouldn't start for them on the first game of the season.
It's a balance for sure. I mean, I don't think you can completely dismiss going with what you need. It drives me absolutely nuts this time of the year, though, when questions are asked that can be asked every year, what's the balance between drafting for need and stuff? What about it drives me crazy when it's not topical to the thing. But no GM is going to come out and say, no, we just draft for need. That's kind of how we do it. I think sometimes it happens, but it's obviously taken into account. We know what they're not going to take. So there's that. Mr. Clean 465 on the soup. He wants Olaf Wimmy and Alfred Collins. Olaf Wimmy, I guess, out of
Olawafemi Oladejo.
Out of UCLA, right?
Mm-hmm. Out of UCLA.
When is he supposed to go?
Used to be a linebacker, and moved down to defensive end and had a pretty good amount of success there at UCLA. Dane Brugler said he's going to be a round 2, round 3 guy. Most people have talked about him as a start of day 3 guy, so top of the 4th round guy. And then I would think Alfred Collins falls roughly into the same range as well. So
Alfred Collins
might be tough to get both those guys.
Alfred Collins is a solid player. I think if you had to choose between those two, you probably go for the guy that lines up inside. You have a lot of edge guys.
I like Collins and his potential to succeed with the Texans a little bit more than Oladejo.
Yeah, kind of one of those leaders. Another guy that's mentioned out of Texas is Sorrell, who I told you this the other day, and Brugler brought it up. Pretty fascinating that, he kind of came into his own his final year at Texas, and that offseason he had LASIK. So I think that's cool. And then the sales guy in Cody Stoots came out and said, "Damn, how the hell did they not get an endorsement for that? That seems like a no-brainer."
The eyes of Texas trust these eye surgeons or whatever, like that's easy money.
Yeah, and then you look at the production, it's like, oh wow, he was a way better player. Oh, he had LASIK. There you go. Yeah, that does seem kind of like a fascinating little nugget that we saw in that thing. I thought that was good.
Yeah, so I like him a pretty good amount. I know he's edge 18 in the beast from Dane Brugler, but
yeah,
well, I liked his mentality at the combine. It was just very like chill.
You can tell the Texas guys have a lot more media training than anyone else. Like it's like between like Barron to Golden to Helm to Viewers to Bond. They all have like just incredible media training.
Speaking of media training, did you have? I wish I could remember the guy's name off the top of my head. Did you happen to see what this A&M defensive lineman said the other day? He's still at A&M. He's one of the current players they have.
Oh, so it's not one of the handful of guys it feels like is in the draft.
Right. He's one of the current defensive linemen. They asked him like, what kind of what's the approach? What's the mentality for the defensive line? And he said, "Oh, we practice CBO," which I don't really think I can kind of say that. I think really what it means is knock a bitch out. And I'm just like, well, what does the C stand for? That it got me thinking. The C stands for choke. Like,
okay.
And he's like, that's the mentality the coach is really kind of instilling us. And I was like, what are you saying? Stop talking.
God, someone could have some fun with that. Good Lord.
CBO, I was like, golly.
Okay. All right. Gig 'em. Luis Salas says, if Scruggs was a day 3 pick, will we be looking at him a little differently? My answer would be yes, but I don't think it's the way in which I might be agreeing and disagreeing at the same time, but I'm assuming that you're saying, okay, we look at Juice Scruggs and we say, okay, he's a big disappointment because of when he was drafted. I think that's true, but I almost think like if he were a day 3 pick, like I think we would be leaning towards him getting his ass cut. As opposed to just, I actually think people are more patient with Juice Scruggs, and a lot of the surroundings have some stuff to do with it because he is a day 2 pick. And I think there's an element of that with John Mechie too, where on one hand you say there's more expectations. I also think there's a natural higher level of patience because in the back of your mind you think, okay, well, eventually he's going to validate being this day 2 pick. But to answer your question, I would say yes. But I think in some ways he actually benefits from it as opposed to being like kind of a victim of it.
I would say yes, because if he was a day 3 pick, he would have been picked where he's supposed to, and they might have used the selection on something else, like a different player or a better player. They wouldn't have used the draft capital to trade up for him.
ESG Soccer says, just got off work. Did you ask who's evaluating offensive line? Now, I did ask about the offensive line evaluation. Nick Caserio kind of served a salad, a little bit of a word salad on it, but you can rewind back and check that out. Jacob says, if I see another mock draft, I'm going to jump. Yeah, mock draft.
I got at least 4 before the draft gets here. So Jacob,
yeah, Stoots is a good mock draft guy, and he always has a theme. I think approaching mock drafts with a theme is the way to go. Yeah. Like not 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. I think approaching it with a theme and a certain goal is definitely the way to go. But yeah, there's a lot of mocks, a lot of them on the internet. It is definitely mock season.
4,000 according to Nick Caserio. There's 4,000 mocks out there. I actually think there's probably a lot more than 4,000 mocks, especially now that you got the mock draft machines. You can just fire it up every day.
Yeah, I think the Pro Football Network one is the winner right now. Although, God, there's a lot of trade offers there. Do you find yourself kind of feeling a little bit like, why the hell do I want a 2026 draft pick if I'm doing a mock draft? Damn it. I don't benefit from that right now. The hell is that? I mean, I like that you offer me a second round pick to trade for me to trade back like 6 spots, but Jesus, like I'm not doing like some dynasty mode or something like that. Like, what do? I get to hold on to it for next year's mock? What if you just got to like stash them away and then you like reopen it the next mock draft? So you say, hey, you traded for a second round pick in 2026 from the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, that's always, it's like I don't get to take that haul and add it to my mock draft next year when I'm excited about day 2 again next year.
Is it like a badge of honor? Look, I got us a second rounder next year.
Sometimes so for trades, I like Pro Football Focus's machine for trades because they make it they make it pretty difficult to like fleece somebody. Pro Football Network, I did one the other night. The Raiders offered me like their whole draft to move up into the first round. And I was like, okay, what are they doing? And they drafted Kenneth Grant. And I was like, the defensive tackle from Michigan? Why did you give me 3 picks today and a pick next year?
Speaking of, Texans had a couple visits.
We should have done the old look over here and moseyed around the building, see if we could have found Donovan Jackson. We might have been there at the same time he's there.
Donovan Jackson, Kenneth Grant. They visited with both those guys. According to, I think Aaron had it and some other people had it. But like, when are we talking about drafting these guys? Are these guys at 25? A lot of these visits, I feel like, are trade backs. Like, I feel like a lot of these visits like make it feel like trade backs. Like, would you put it past them to trade with Buffalo or Kansas City?
No.
I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, Buffalo and Kansas City, they have been dueling for years, and they made a trade last year. Why not?
Cacerio doesn't give a damn who the team is. He just cares about making sure they get exactly what they need out of the move.
Yeah, the trade back, I think it would be appealing. Trade back with one of those squads. Those are the squads, and you got to see who Minnesota trades with first, because Minnesota is going to be trying to make a splash. I think Minnesota will be like the splash team, like on the front end of the second round that trades up. I think that's kind of what we see more with Minnesota, is I think they're trying to go big. But I think I could see the Texans just wanting to add a day 2 pick or something like that, move back the handful of spots.
The cool thing about Buffalo is they have a team 2 spots in front of them that needs the exact same thing that they need. Like, Buffalo needs some edge rushers. Detroit needs some edge rushers. So you got a team right in front of you that needs the same thing. Like, that's a little bit easier to kind of open the line of communication, be like, hey.
Well, I think the other element of that you mentioned is the line of communication. And we saw this with Cleveland, where the Texans made the Brock Osweiler trade, where it was basically an NBA trade where you get back draft equity to take on a crappy contract. And then later on, a few months later, I'll be damned, they trade up to get Deshaun Watson with Cleveland, right? Yeah, they traded up. They traded up for that pick, and then they traded with Cleveland. I know it's different regimes and stuff, but I'm more so talking about like that recent communication and how that came about. They ended up getting Nick Chubb with that Osweiler pick too, so I'd say they did quite well for themselves. But I say all that to say, you have experience trading with the Eagles a lot. And you made the Kenyon Green trade and the Chauncey Gardner, CJ Gardner-Johnson trade this offseason. So that line of communication's probably pretty damn open to where Nick and Howie can just jump right into it. And then you had the trade last year with the Bills. So I think that line of communication is pretty deep. And you made the draft trade with Minnesota last year. So if Minnesota wants to double dip, let's just say the Texans just don't want to get hopped. If you throw Minnesota they don't have a 4th round pick, so I don't know what you do, but you trade up with Minnesota 1 spot just to avoid being hopped, and then Minnesota trades back again. Like, you have that line of communication because you made a draft day trade with them last year. So you do have some open lines of communication from 24/25 back that Nick Caserio has already activated.
I need to double check this. I'm pretty sure they've made a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles in 3 straight drafts.
Well, they both like to freaking move around.
Because obviously the Kenyon Green move, that was an Eagles trade. Last year was Cade Stover. They moved up for Cade Stover. That was with the Eagles. And then they did something in 2023. And I'm pretty sure Christian Harris. They traded with the Eagles for Juice Scruggs.
Yeah, they'd love to make draft day trades with the Eagles. It's a thing.
And then hold on, I think Christian Harris in 2022 was also the Eagles. So they love to make a little draft day trade. No, Christian Harris with the Broncos, but they still had the Eagles from the first round.
Yeah, so more is Howie and Cacerio are bros.
Yeah, they're buddies. They're buddies. And like, I don't know if you're in the move up crew. I'm not. I'd be interested in moving around on day 2. But if you're in the move up in either round 1 or round 2, obviously they have a great relationship with Arizona. Cacerio knows Austin Fort from way back in the day, and
he loved Gannon,
and he liked Gannon, and they made the Will Anderson trade with them.
He's very well networked, that Nick Caserio fella. He has a nice little network.
Boy, if they got 32, they could probably goad Cleveland into giving them 33.
Take Judkins at 32. Take Judkins. Let's go.
They could probably get Cleveland to.
If you got the extra pick, take Judkins. Let's go. You're good.
If he's available.
Figure something out. Yeah, he's getting a lot more momentum.
Well,
I don't want to keep that down.
Him and Henderson are both getting a lot of momentum because Omarion Hampton's continued to get momentum.
Yeah, the over 2.5. Cash it. I by the way, I put in the bet top 5. It was worth it. Put to win 100, 8-1. Jags taking Genty number 5. 8-1's good odds there. Raiders, though, it's minus 170. I was going to try to double up, and I was like, okay, what do they got the Raiders? Raiders is like minus 170 to take Genty.
Okay, that's not
No,
good.
and it wasn't even Jags. It was just number 5 overall pick. So if somebody trades in front of the Raiders because they know the Raiders want Genty, or let's say that the Raiders want Genty and the Jags don't, and they don't trade up, it's the number 5 overall pick Genty at 8-1. So there's even more.
Oh, that's actually a great.
Yeah, so it's not he goes to the Jags, it's number 5 overall. So if the Jags like a D lineman and some team likes Genty, or the Raiders decide they don't want to mess with it and they do that one trade up thing to get him, then you get that. So it's like, I think it was like 16, 17 or whatever to win 100. Just 8-1. Why the hell not?
Yeah.
Why the hell not?
One of the best players in the draft. Why wouldn't teams try to get up to 5? Is there somebody else in the top 10 that could realistically jump up to 5, jump the Raiders?
Cowboys might be kind of something to keep an eye on.
Chicago
at 10-5.
They moved around and added.
They're being very aggressive.
They moved around and added Gibbs when Johnson was there.
Well, yeah, Ben Johnson knows the value of the running back. Like, if anyone doesn't give a crap about your positional value talk, it is Ben Johnson. So lurking right there at 10-5.
And Chicago has 4 picks in the top 72.
Yeah, they've stockpiled. And they're trying to make it as Caleb Williams friendly as possible. So that the number 5 overall pick at 8-1 right now, I think is the best draft bet that you can possibly make. I think it's incredible.
That is really good.
I feel like you're going to make it. I feel like
5.
Taking my betting advice is not ideal, but I think you're going to make that move.
You'd be correct.
Yeah. A good one. No doubt. Someone says degenerate. This is not a degenerate pick. That was very well laid out. Degenerate would just be, hey, I'm gonna bet on the over. But
I'm gonna annoy you when I say this. I like the value on Armand Membu too.
Okay.
He's 4.5-1.
Take it. Good value.
Put a little sprinkle on both those guys.
Like it. I think it's a good value pick. So yeah, go with it. Would you take Judkins? Gunner asked an interesting question. Would you take Henderson or Judkins? Or if Judkins isn't there, would I take Henderson? I like Henderson. I like Henderson for sure.
Yes.
32 though. 32. Yeah, probably. I really think that
there's a problem. If Judkins is gone and Henderson's there at 31, he's a Chief.
they have like 50 running backs, but they haven't drafted one since they took Edwards-Helaire instead of Jonathan Taylor. So maybe this would be some sort of validation. But yeah, that's possible. I don't know that the Ohio State guys get past the Patriots. Stevenson fumbles a lot. And Vrabel's kind of an Ohio State guy, but who the hell knows? I mean, your guess is
well, they're not.
Nuts.
I mean, they don't get past 37 and 38, especially if the Raiders do something else in the first round. One of those Ohio State guys is going to Chip Kelly in Las Vegas, and then the other guy's going to Vrabel in New England.
Matt Marr.
Swarm.
What's good, boys? Just got back from the Stroh's Cards game. Did I miss much? You didn't miss much. Nick Caserio, a lot of word salad. Kind of some excitement when it comes to the slot guys. The offensive line really didn't give us that much. Broke down the small school guys.
There are a couple croutons in there.
Stoots got a little bit upset about his Kelvin Banks theory that I kind of hiked my leg on. If you want to check that out.
Yeah, you're just very dismissive as usual.
And other than that, really not much. Speaking of which, let's revisit the Banks theory. Give me the Banks theory again. I think I need to give it a second chance. Give me the Banks theory again.
Kelvin Banks, to me, has less question marks as a potential draftee than a lot of the linemen that Nick Caserio has brought in his tenure as general manager.
Great point.
That's the simplest way I can put it.
That is an excellent point, man.
Being a smart ass?
No, I love it.
Then why are you smiling while you're saying this?
That's excellent, dude.
You can't even keep a straight face.
I love that theory, man. That is
that's fine.
That is good wisdom, man.
That's fine. You can, and I get him at 25 and he sucks. You can make fun of me when I give them a pass and criticize him instead of them.
Oh, because Cacerio said today, and I think it was I actually disagree. He said draft picks are 50-50. I actually think it's less than that. I actually think if you're batting 500 on the draft, I think you've done a pretty damn good job.
If they were 50-50 on O-linemen, they wouldn't be in this shit-sipping situation.
Yeah, so I actually think it's even more difficult than that, given the variables, and you don't know how players are going to react. So I think it's tougher than 50-50. I actually look, we sit here and we talk about this shit, and there's criticism, and there's times when we're wrong and all that type of stuff. Don't pretend this is easy. Now, I do think that sometimes it's overthought, and I think that might be part of the point that you're making is that a lot of times there does tend to be, when it comes to the offensive line, perhaps some overthinking when it comes to what they're trying to do and what they do. But I don't pretend this is easy for Nick Caserio. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. That's why he's a rich guy. Deserves it. By the way, you notice how Nick Caserio's smacking his lips when he drinks the coffee?
Mm-hmm.
Like when he's looking at questions? Play me asking the question again, and I'll explain this. This is my theory. This is my analysis. You won't get this anywhere else, I promise. And you probably shouldn't if we're being honest.
The offensive line question?
Yeah, just anything. Just watch how he's smacking the lips.
The offensive line and the process. You guys have had the most invested, or among the top of the league, most invested in the offensive line.
Right. So
and
this is what
we're at 7 smacks here. What's going on?
So here's what happens, and I think this is something that I like a lot, and I've actually adopted this. I heard Sean and Seth ask this. I think Stresson's like brought it up or whatever. But he drinks honey in his coffee, and the honey it melts, but it's still kind of sticky. So like when you're drinking the coffee, like it's not like a normal drink of coffee. Like you're kind of having to get the honey out of off the lips. So I think that's what it is.
Probably. You're probably right.
Yeah.
About that.
Yeah. I think that's a honey coffee smack.
The honey coffee smack.
Honey coffee smack, which by the way, it's a system cleanser if you ever so decide to try this. I like it. ESG soccer on the soup.
Swarm.
And all of y'all better be at the draft party on the 26th at Karbach starting at 11 a.m. And we want you on the super stream tonight, 8 o'clock. Stoots asks the question. And by the way, I think we got to send Harris the link to the thing to get him in. He just texted me. He said your bank's theory sucks. But
he didn't say that.
He said that was the dumbest thing let me read it.
Don't lie on John Harris's name just to make yourself sound better.
Dude, I never got it. By the way, that Stoots Banks theory was the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It's
ROFL when you called him on it.
Screenshot it. Send it to me. Screenshot it. Send it to me.
Why? Then I'm telling on myself for snitching, although I just said it in front of 420 people. Anyway, ESG Soccer says contracts are contracts and the draft is 50-50. LMA not making me feel good about the OL evaluations with those answers. Signed, Nick Caserio.
The guy could come up there and tell you they've changed the entire way that they operate offensive line situations. That wouldn't make you feel better. Nothing's going to make you feel better until they get 5 guys out there that can actually block for CJ Stroud. So there's nothing he could have said today that's going to make you feel better.
It's fair. It's fair. Very
There
fair.
was always going to be healthy skepticism, healthy criticism.
Yep. By the way, Harris didn't really say that. I was lying.
No shit, he didn't say that because it's a good theory.
You believed me for a minute. You believe me.
I didn't.
For a minute.
No, I didn't.
I had you for a minute. You believed me for a second.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. No, he can like you and still think something's dumb, but I had you going for a second there.
No,
you really believed it.
No, you didn't. You're a dumbass.
Jay Friend says, how long will you guys be at Karbach? I'm driving from Dallas that day. We'll be there for the entire duration of the day 3. At least I will. So we'll be hanging out. It's gonna be a long day.
I'm gonna be there longer than Landry. Now that he's over here questioning how long I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna sleep there.
Okay, we'll sleep there. Do that. I'm gonna be there.
I'm gonna have brunch in the pub the next morning.
Yeah, we got some stuff. I got some extra autographs at the Roger Clemens thing. I want to. Like, is it insulting for me? Because I have lightly worn Texans hats that I've gotten the last few years. Like, is getting rid? Would anyone be offended by me getting rid of it? They're pretty sick ass hats. I just don't want to wear Texans gear really anymore. Now that I'm on the scene 24/7. It's not like a radio thing. Is that a bad thing or not?
I have no opinion on it one way or the other.
Well, thanks, dude. Welcome to my life. Just hosting with a guy without an opinion. Good Lord. It's tough. It's tough on these streets.
Oh, okay, so I have an opinion. You shit on it. You're dismissive. You don't even let me say it most of the time. I'm a dumbass. Look at me hosting with a guy who's got these dumbass theories. I don't give a shit about your used hats that you're trying to pawn off on our listeners.
I'm not pawning them off. I'm giving them away.
And all of a sudden,
I'm not having a garage sale.
And all of a sudden,
part of the giveaway. It's part of the giveaway.
You're gonna open up the back of your trunk and be like, "Hey, look at this." $4.99.
Ain't no giving up no NFL Shield hat. That's not going anywhere. But I have a lot of Texans hats that I've barely worn.
I'm sure there'd be some people that would enjoy those.
Yeah, but yeah, send that to Harris, dude. We got to have him here.
I can't. It's 3 hours till he's on. Like, it's gonna be fine if he gets it at 5:30.
Billy D says, Cody, you got to take Landry with a grain of salt. He's either negative or facetious. I don't think I'm that negative. I think sometimes I can be negative, but I don't think I'm facetious. But I do appreciate Billy telling Cody how I am, despite the fact we've known each other for damn near 17 years. That's a good lesson that I'm sure Cody's going to carry with him, Billy D. Appreciate you, my friend.
You're so mean to people sometimes.
That was a good lesson right there.
So
He's telling you how to deal with me. I thought that was good. Like Billy D, that's a lesson. That's a lesson of the day right there.
Can't believe we didn't get to the point where Cacerio called you out.
He looked at me, didn't he?
Yep. Well, let's roll the clip here.
Mistakes in the past. I'm not going to ask you about those mistakes. I'm just going to ask you.
Oh, you guys fucking talk about them all the time. So.
Yeah, right there to the right. You saw that.
He did the old. He cut the eyes. He cut the eyes over to you.
He's right though. He's right there.
Well, what does Jordan Belfort say in The Wolf of Wall Street? I ask you to not judge.
Which one's
me
Jordan
on my
Belfort?
winners. It's the main characters, Leo DiCaprio.
Oh, Leo. Okay.
Yeah. Don't judge me on my winners. Judge me on my losers because there are so few. There's a lot of losers to judge Nick Caserio on from the draft pick situation, from the move situation.
Are you going to see? I was wondering this the other day, and get ready for the super stream at 8:00. We look forward to seeing everyone here. Someone says they haven't heard Cacerio cuss. He cusses, dude. Like he cusses like behind the scenes. Nick Caserio will cuss every once in a while. But are you going to see this Michael B. Jordan movie?
The
one that comes out tomorrow?
Sinners?
Dude, I thought it was like going to be a cool ass movie. And then all of a sudden it turns into like Night of the Dead shit. And I was like, man, I really want to see this movie. And then all of a sudden, like the trailer, like I'm like on the edge of my seat. And then all of a sudden he's like eating someone's face or something like that. I'm like, why can't we just have a normal, good, solid, awesome movie?
Well, Michael B. Jordan's got a whole catalog of that. Go watch it.
I have, but I was just wondering if I would get a new one.
No,
of course he has a good catalog.
You're getting a horror thriller.
Like I don't need this fantasy stuff. I know you like you like his Marvel. Doesn't he have a Marvel movie?
Michael B. Jordan?
Does he have a Marvel movie?
Oh boy.
Oh Lord.
Go ahead, hit it.
He's never been in a Marvel movie.
Anthony Mackie is who you're thinking of.
But he's never been in a Marvel movie. No, I don't think he was Captain America. He's never been in a Marvel movie.
Michael B. Jordan was in the Fantastic Four back in the day.
Thank you. Okay, so hit it on you.
It's like 15 years ago.
Yeah, hit it on you. Yeah, I obviously did because I got it. So there you go. Bada bing, bada boom. That's on you, buddy.
Oh, yeah, I guess he was the bad guy in Black Panther.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You didn't know that, though. You thought he was Captain America. You thought he was Anthony Mackie.
I was right. So
you thought he was Anthony Mackie.
I apologize for Cody. Don't cancel him. We'll talk to you tonight at 8:00. Subscribe, like, right along. Always.
Oh,
remember,
so Cody fucks up. We're gonna get out of here on that.
Yeah, we got to get out of here quickly before
we don't have anything. We don't have anything to do till 8:00, and you're over here like, gotta go.
Yes.
Everybody remember that Cody messed that up.
Yeah, he messed that up. He needs to get some rest before this super stream. Appreciate y'all for rolling through.
Curtain back. Landry thought we were taping TV today. We're taping TV Sunday.
I dressed up, man. I had my sport coat in the car and everything.
You looked like you were going to a job interview.
Well, I thought I thought we were recording. I forgot. I did not know that it was on Sunday. So yeah, I dressed up. I thought it was a longer day. I've been saying it on the stream. I don't know why I thought that.
I don't know either.
No, where 2:30 came from. So I have no idea.
Been sitting here for 3 days, be like, well, gonna be a real busy day, TV and stuff for Sunday. And I'm just like, yeah, Sunday when we do the TV stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. So anyway, appreciate y'all for rolling through. Shout out to Nick Caserio for the word salad and a little croutons, as Cody said.
Mr. Queen here
in there
at the buzzer. Trade up with the Dolphins for Warren.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know if he gets there.
If he's there, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, and you're trading up again over Indianapolis, so that would be fun. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Subscribe, like, right along. Join us at 8:00. Locker room at the same time at 10:30. Cody's doing his thing. We're gonna rest. And always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Be good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans with you at 8:00. Super stream. Don't miss it. Thanks for watching.
Banks theory, brilliant.
Shut up, Landry.